one from 92, they can get it. So quite difficult. Some of my friends, they already registered from the beginning of this year, but until now not getting. So in Shanghai, the plate, they don't need to do that, but they buy it by themselves. So last month, each plate cost 50,000 yuan to get a plate. So that's why a lot of friends said in Shanghai they have a lot of nice cars there. In Beijing we have a lot of Volkswagen, all this one, just you know, like 100,000 to 200,000. Only this kind of common people we buy. But you know, in Shanghai they have a lot of nice cars because they spend a lot for their plate. So they would like to spend more for their car. So that's why, yeah. So actually, before you visit here, you visit China, do you know some brief information, brief history about my country? Not much. Do you know how many years history? 5,000, 3,000? Yeah. Actually, if you ask most of Chinese, they will say in China we have a 5,000 years history. But actually, from the archaeologists, so they can find evidence that dates back to 3,800 years ago. Because in our country, we have the first dynasty, we call the Xia dynasty. But the Xia dynasty is a kind of, we call the legendary dynasty. Because this dynasty we only found from the book, not find any evidence from the tomb. So the earliest one we can find, that's from the Shang dynasty. So because when we open the tomb of the Shang dynasty, we found something. You want some air? 让我给它开点自然风好不好？像现在稍微热啊。然后要把那个So because when we opened the tomb of the Shang dynasty, we found something made of bronze, made of jade, made of pottery. So many of that have a very simple design, like a geometric design, like a square or the triangle, or like some animal design, like a fish, bird. Yeah. So this is the earliest one we can find real evidence. And after that, so that dynasty we call the Zhou. Many foreigners never heard of the Zhou dynasty, but in the end of the Zhou dynasty, we have a period we call the Warring States period. That's period quite important in our history, because that's period we have 7 small states in the center part of our country. That's a very famous one. And during that time in China, we start to build our Great Wall. So that's why in China when we begin to build a Great Wall, so not one construction, they are separate one, because each state build part of the wall in their own area. They just want to protect themselves from each other and from the barbarians. So this is when we start to build a wall. And during the Warring States period, also Confucius, he was born during that period, so he influenced China more than 2,000 years ago. So after that, they come into our first unified country, the first dynasty. So in Chinese we call it Qin. Do you know how can spell Qin? Spell like Q-I-N. Because many foreigners got confused of the Qin and the Qing. Qin dynasty is the first, and the Qing dynasty is the last. The Qing dynasty is Q-I-N-G. So the first emperor, so unified China. So his name in Chinese we call Qin Shi Huang. He's very famous. You ever heard of? No? Many foreigners never heard of this emperor, but some friends know the tomb of this emperor. So we call it terracotta warriors. That's not, yeah, you know that, right? That's not in Beijing, that's in Xi'an. Another city even older than Beijing. Beijing as a capital only 1,000, but Xi'an as a capital more than 2,000 years long. So that's the capital at the time in Xi'an. So the emperor built his tomb there. That's emperor, very powerful, very famous emperor. So after he unified China, first he sent the general to link up all the war together. So that's the first time in our history we call it the Great War. So At that time, it took about 1 million people. You know, during the Qin Dynasty, the whole country population only 20 million. So, but 1 million people, they all involved in this building. And another reason, because this emperor, after he conquered our country, he just, you know, unified all the Chinese currency. Yeah, at the time used the coinage, and also unified the Chinese character, and unified. Yeah. Later, in your left side, you can see the corner tower on our old city wall. That's one. You can see they have many arrow holes, So that's a place for our soldier guarding our old city wall. So in this location, we have the inner city wall. At that time, Beijing, we have the outer city wall, inner city wall, imperial city wall, and life's forbidden city. So the emperor living in the exact center of my city. Yeah. So this is the corner of the inner city wall. Yeah. And this is our delegates working here. We have a new place very close to the Tiananmen Square. So in our country, all the people will have the right to vote. But when we vote for the delegates. And the delegates, they vote for our president and premier, the high-rank officials. And over there, that's our Asian Observatory. Also built during the Ming Dynasty. Yeah. So I said in the Han Dynasty, we have 4 Asian inventions very famous. That's the paper making.